I know it is traditional to ask the pastor to either skip his sermon or to abbreviate it greatly. I'm going to disappoint a few of you this morning. But these texts speak so loudly to us in the events of this past week, in the events of the last 48 hours, that I cannot not speak. Micah has been prophesying to the people of Israel, as has Isaiah and Jeremiah and all of the other prophets in Israel. He's telling them that God has a controversy with them. And in the first 5 chapters, you can read all of the many other prophecies in which Micah pointed out what the leaders of Israel and Judah were not doing. How they were dishonoring the nations and the way it was founded. How they were dishonoring God. How they were not at all just or fair or honest. And when we get to chapter 6, Micah tries to use the example of a lawsuit. With the exception maybe of Phil, I don't know how many of you have ever been involved in a court case as either a plaintiff or a defendant. I've had the distinct displeasure of being on both sides. But God is the plaintiff. And he's calling as his jury not 12 of his peers, because there are no peers, but God is calling creation, the mountains and the hills, those objects, those parts of creation that have stood through time, to be God's witness. And he says, what have I ever done wrong for you, people? Why do you run away from me? Why do you refuse to follow what I asked of you? And Micah points out what God has done through the history of Israel, beginning with the Exodus from Egypt, their rescue from slavery, bringing through the Sinai desert, 40 years wandering in the wilderness, and finally they get to the promised land. And that's where the reference in the text of Shittim and Gilgal is all about. Shittim is on the east side of the River Jordan, and Gilgal is on the west. To remember how the people crossed through the river, how God protected them through the Red Sea, through the Jordan River, and allowed them to occupy the promised land and bless them there. God states God's case. He says, answer me. What have I done wrong? What do I need to do to get your attention? And the people turn around and say, what do you want from us? What do you require from me? What are you asking? And the prophet's answer to the people is, hey folks, this is simple. God's asking just 3 things. There's a 3-fold answer here. Justice. And the word in the Hebrew, mishpat, that is used as the word for justice is not an abstract idea, as a statue with the scales on it might be, or something that we think about, but it is an action. It means do something. It means I must actually create justice. And if I can't create it, I need to advocate for it. When something goes wrong, when someone is treated unfairly, When laws are passed or executive orders issued that discriminate against whole classes of people, I am required to get up. I am required to advocate. I am required to demand justice for those who are being oppressed. I am required to do, not sit and talk about it. Not wondering how big the check I can write to help support the cause is. But I am required to embody that. Take my body and go and stand in the gap and demand that these people, whoever it is, whatever the cause is, that we demand justice and fairness. That's number one. Kindness. Do justice, love kindness. And the word that's translated as kindness is hesed. It's the same word that is used elsewhere to mean faithfulness. God's steadfast faithfulness, loyalty. What it demands of us is that we are also required to have the same faithfulness to each other and to God. To walk humbly, to make the whole center, the whole of our lives, God. Now I know for us in 2017, that's a tall order. How do we switch gears this morning? What can we do to change how we are living our daily lives in order to walk humbly with God? Because it is not us that would be in control. It's not us that necessarily will determine what the final results are. And we want to be in control. We don't want to give anything up. I will determine my fate. Don't you tell me what to do. But God says, all I need is 3 things from you. Go out. Make sure justice is done. Love, steadfastness, faithfulness, loyalty to me and to each other. And make the whole of your life a walk with me. That your entire life, I am your constant companion. And what do we get for that? Sometimes a raft of crap. Sometimes praise. But in Matthew, in the Beatitudes, Matthew points to what the end of things is. Blessed are those who are poor. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are meek. Blessed are those who are peacemakers. For in the end, the kingdom will be yours. In the long run, you will have walked with God, and your reward will be received from God. Life is not guaranteed to be perfect for us. And I think each one of us sitting in the pews here, and me standing before you, can say there are times when life has been really miserable. And maybe right now you're going through misery. Maybe right now there's something personal in your life that is dragging you down. But when is the last time we have taken that concern, that worry, whatever is going on, and asked God to help us with it? Ask God to be our companion through that crap, if you'll excuse that expression, because I'm tempted to use another one. When is the last time we asked God to be that companion? to us to walk humbly with him. Because if we are, if we will, God promises to be with us. Blessed we will be. Maybe the pathway is going to be a difficult one. There may be some folks who go through smooth sailing and don't receive trouble. But I'll guarantee you, if we do justice, if we live with kindness and compassion and steadfastness and loyalty, and if we walk humbly with God, we're going to run into trouble. Because there are those who won't like what we do. They won't like what we tell them. In the explanation of the text, the commentator says, Christianity is not a philosophy of life designed to make people successful and calm today, in this present moment. Christianity is not a scheme to reduce stress, lose weight, advance in your career, or preserve you from illness. Christian faith instead is a way of living based on the firm and sure hope that meekness is the way of God, that righteousness and peace will finally prevail, and that God's future will be a time of mercy and not cruelty. Do we dare live that life? Do we dare walk that way? As your pastor, as the person you have asked to lead you in revitalization and renewal, that is what my job is, to call you to live that Christian life. To walk together, to worship together, to study the scriptures together, to confirm our youth in our faith, to live an example of what it is to be Christian in this troubled world. It won't be easy. It may at times feel lonely to us. And we may feel like we are bucking the entire establishment and all the institutions around us. And based on this past week, we are required to do that. To point out when legislation that is being passed or considered will discriminate against our fellow citizens, the fellow children of God. None of us has the right to look at anyone else and say, you are not a child of God. All of us are. And that's what our message needs to be. We will work for justice. We will be loyal and steadfast to our fellow children of God, whether they are in this building or outside of these walls. And together, we will walk with God. That's what I ask you to do as we consider revitalization and renewal. And it's not just me, but God asks all of us to do that. The question for us is, do we dare walk that way?